They are our sisters and brothers. The 21 passengers aboard the Spirit of Humanity have been illegally incarcerated for their solidarity work with Palestine. 11,000 other members of our common human family are already imprisoned simply for being Palestinian. The siege of Palestine is not simply the physical blockade against Gaza. The siege includes the hundreds of checkpoints throughout the West Bank that separate families and communities and shatter any prospect for a viable Palestinian state. The siege includes the millions of Palestinians in diaspora, many of them dumped in squalid refugee camps in Jordan, Lebanon, and elsewhere. The siege is ever present throughout all aspects of Palestinian life. This siege is only strengthened when we pay more attention to the injustice done to 21 international solidarity workers than we do to the much greater injustices already being committed against millions of Palestinians. We in the Free Gaza movement implore all the good people around the world who have working so hard to secure the release of our friends to adopt a Palestinian prisoner. We ask you to learn about the crisis and take on the cause of an individual prisoner as your own. Break the siege. Reach out to Palestine. Ireland's Foreign Affairs Minister calls for release of Irish activists detained by Free Gaza Team. July 2, 2009. Ireland's Foreign Affairs Minister Micheál Martin today called for the swift release of 2 Irish nationals currently detained in Israel following the June 30 seizure of a boat en route to Gaza with humanitarian aid. The 2, Nobel Peace Prize winner Mairead Maguire and Eric Graham, are awaiting deportation following the seizure of vessel the Spirit of Humanity. In a statement, Minister Martin said his department has been closely following the situation and was in ongoing contact with Israeli authorities. My immediate priority is ensuring the safety and welfare of Ms. Maguire and Mr. Graham and securing their release as soon as possible, the minister said. I have been assured by the Israeli authorities that they are both well and are being properly treated. An officer from the Irish Embassy in Tel Aviv visited yesterday with Ms. Maguire and Mr. Graham to provide assistance and will endeavor to make a further consular visit today. I would again renew my call for the release of Ms. Maguire and Mr. Graham as well as the other 19 passengers detained on the Spirit of Humanity, he added. I would also call upon the Israeli government to ensure that the humanitarian supplies for the people of Gaza being transported on the Spirit of Humanity are made available as soon as possible to the Palestinian authorities for distribution. The minister called the current Israeli blockade of Gaza completely unacceptable and called for all border crossings into the coastal salient to be open to humanitarian and commercial traffic. UN expert denounces seizure of aid boat by Israeli forces. Written by Free Gaza Movement. July 2, 2009. Geneva, the UN Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territories, occupied since 1967, Richard Falk, denounced the unlawful naval seizure by an Israeli gunboat on the high seas of a ship carrying medicine and reconstruction material to blockaded people of Gaza. This Israeli action implements its cruel blockade of the entire Palestinian population of Gaza, in violation of Article 33 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, that prohibits any form of collective punishment directed at an occupied people, said the human rights expert. Mr. Falk pointed to a recent report on the impact on health resulting from the 2-year blockade, issued by the International Committee of the Red Cross. He stressed that Israeli actions not only restrict such vital supplies as food, medicine, and fuel to bare subsistence levels, but has in unprecedented fashion disallowed the entry to Gaza of building materials and spare parts needed for repairing some of the widespread damage caused by its attacks on the Strip that took place for 22 days starting on December 27, 2008. Such a pattern of continuing blockade under these conditions amounts to such a serious violation of the Geneva Conventions as to constitute a continuing crime against humanity, added the independent human rights expert. The boat in question had been inspected in response to Israeli demands before departure by the port authorities in Cyprus to determine whether there were weapons on board. None were found, and Israeli authorities were so informed. Nonetheless, the 21 peace activists on the boat were arrested, held in captivity, and have been charged with illegal entry to Israel, even though they had no intention of going to Israel. Interview from a kidnapped passenger, Adi Mormech. Prison cell, Jivan Jail, Ramel, Israel. July 4, 2009. Adi Mormech, one of 21 human rights workers and crew taken prisoner. On Tuesday, the 30th of June, when his boat was forcibly boarded by the Israeli Navy, has spoken by mobile phone from his prison cell at Jivan Jail, Ramel, near Tel Aviv. In a brief interview with Andy Bowman of Manchester's Mule newspaper, Mr. Mormech gave the following account. How are you being treated? It's bad, but the conditions are okay for me. I've not been beaten up. They're a bit nasty sometimes, and when they boarded the boat we had our faces slammed against the floor. It was bad for the older women like Merit. The 4 other UK nationals are in the cell with me. There are 14 of us in the 7x7 meter cell, that includes the toilet and shower, so very crowded. It's very hot, and there's only a tiny window. We get awakened at 6 in the morning for an inspection, and have to stand to attention, and then they repeat that at 9 AM, and we are only allowed out of the cells for a few hours each day. They keep giving us forms to sign, but they are in Hebrew, so we don't. Although I'm able to cope here, other people are less comfortable than me in the situation. If we are here for a long time like some of the other people in here have been, then it will be tough. Have you had access to a lawyer yet? We have, and at the moment we are discussing what to do about our deportation. They've taken our personal items like laptops, cameras, phones, and many other valuables, and we want to find out where these are. They obviously want to deport us as quickly as possible, but some of us are thinking about fighting the deportation. Firstly, on the basis that, if we get deported we won't be allowed into the occupied West Bank or Israel for another 10 years, but also, because we didn't intend to come here to Israel, we intended to go to Gaza, and went directly from international waters into Palestinian waters. There is nothing legal about what Israel has done to us grabbing us like this. We are considering fighting the deportation on the grounds that we shouldn't accept and legitimize this barbaric military blockade of Gaza. If you challenge the deportation, could you remain in prison for a while longer? Yes, we could. There are some people that need to get home, but some will challenge. And for those it will be a few more weeks in prison at least, we expect. And you? I'm veering toward challenging it on the basis that it's a scar on my name to accept that I shouldn't have been here, but in fact I have every right to go to Gaza, just as everyone else does. That's the whole point of these voyages, and that's the principle we want to stick to. Have they told you what has happened to the cargo of the boat? No, we don't know what they're doing with it. We've been told a lot of lies so far about where we are going and what's happening to us, so we just don't know. They're already prepared to deprive the people of Gaza of a lot of aid anyway. What is your message to people back in the UK? This is not about us here in the cells, it's about the denial of human rights to the people of Palestine, and in particular the inhumane blockade of Gaza. People must not forget about what is happening to Gaza. At the moment they are even being denied food and medical supplies. After the carnage of the 1,500 people killed in January, we won't forget, and we'll keep on going, and keep fighting for the human rights of the people of Palestine. Interview by Andy Bowman from the Manchester Mule, a small indie media outlet based out of Manchester in the UK. They punch above their weight, providing good progressive and investigative journalism as volunteers. Letter from an Israeli Jail. By Cynthia McKinney, July 4th. 2009. This is Cynthia McKinney, and I'm speaking from an Israeli prison cell block in Ramel. I'm one of the Free Gaza 21 human rights activists currently imprisoned for trying to take medical supplies to Gaza, building supplies, and even crayons for children. I had a suitcase full of crayons for children. While we were on our way to Gaza, the Israelis threatened to fire on our boat, but we did not turn around. The Israelis hijacked and arrested us because we wanted to give crayons to the children in Gaza. We have been detained, and we want the people of the world to see how we have been treated, just because we wanted to deliver humanitarian assistance to the people of Gaza. At the outbreak of Israel's Operation Cast Lead, in December 2008, I boarded a free Gaza boat with 1 day's notice and tried, as the US representative in a multinational delegation, to deliver 3 tons of medical supplies to an already besieged and ravaged Gaza. During Operation Cast Lead, US yen-SUPPLIED F-16s rained hellfire on our trapped people. Ethnic cleansing became full-scale, outright genocide. US supplied white phosphorus, depleted uranium, robotic technology, dime weapons, and cluster bombs, new weapons creating injuries never treated before by Jordanian and Norwegian doctors. I was later told by doctors who were there in Gaza during Israel's onslaught that Gaza had become Israel's veritable weapons testing laboratory. People used to test and improve the kill ratio of their weapons. The world saw Israel's despicable violence thanks to Al Jazeera Arabic and Press TV that broadcast in English. I saw those broadcasts live and around the clock, not from the USA but from Lebanon, where my first attempt to get into Gaza had ended because the Israeli military rammed the boat I was on in international waters. It's a miracle that I'm even here to write about my second encounter with the Israeli military, again a humanitarian mission aborted by the Israeli military. The Israeli authorities have tried to get us to confess that we committed a crime. I'm now Israeli prisoner number 88,794, in prison for collecting crayons to kids. Zionism has surely run out of its last legitimacy, if this is what it does to people who believe so deeply in human rights for all that they put their own lives on the line for someone else's children. Israel is the fullest expression of Zionism, but if Israel fears for its security, because Gaza's children have crayons, then not only has Israel lost its last shred of legitimacy, but Israel must be declared a failed state. I'm facing deportation from the state that brought me here at gunpoint after commandeering our boat. I was brought to Israel against my will. I'm being held in this prison because I had a dream that Gaza's children could color and paint, that Gaza's wounded could be healed, and that Gaza's bombed out houses could be rebuilt. But I've learned an interesting thing by being inside this prison. First of all, it's incredibly black, populated mostly by Ethiopians, who also had a dream like my cellmates. One is pregnant. They all are in their 20s. They thought they were coming to the Holy Land. They had a dream that their lives would be better. The once proud, never colonized Ethiopia has been thrown into the back pocket of the United States and become a place of torture, rendition, and occupation. Ethiopians must free their country because superpower politics have become more important than human rights and self-determination. My cellmates came to the Holy Land so they could be free from the exigencies of superpower politics. They committed no crime except to have a dream. They came to Israel because they thought that Israel held promise for them. Their journey to Israel through Sudan and Egypt was arduous. I can only imagine what it must have been like for them. And it wasn't cheap. Many of them represent their families' best collective efforts for self-fulfillment. They made their way to the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. They got their yellow paper of identification. They got their certificate for police protection. They are refugees from tragedy, and they made it to Israel. Only after they arrived, Israel told them, there is no UN in Israel. The police here have license to pick them up and suck them into the black hole of a farce for a justice system. These beautiful, industrious, and proud women represent the hopes of entire families. The idea of Israel tricked them, and the rest of us. In a widely propagandized slick marketing campaign, Israel represented itself as a place of refuge and safety for the world's first Jews and Christians. I too believed that marketing, and failed to look deeper. The truth is that Israel lied to the world. Israel lied to the families of these young women. Israel lied to the women themselves who are now trapped in Ramal's detention facility. And what are we to do? One of my cellmates cried today. She has been here for 6 months. As an American, crying with them is not enough. The policy of the United States must be better, and while we watch President Obama give $12.8 trillion to the financial elite of the United States, it ought now be clear that hope, change, and yes we can were powerfully presented